You're listening to the Disruptive Franchise Podcast with Stacey Can, the podcast that celebrates innovation in franchising and peeks behind the curtain of failure, success, and the future of the franchise industry. Hello, I'm Stacey. Welcome to the Disruptive Franchise Podcast. This week I have got the amazing Anna Neville from Kidslingo with me. Hi, Anna.
Hello.
Hola.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, ça va?
Très bien.
Bien. That's about the limit of my French and Spanish, I'm afraid.
Okay.
But for those of you that don't know, Anna Neville runs Kidslingo, which is an amazing children's activity business, which helps children how to speak, children and adults probably, how to speak French and Spanish. Anna, welcome.
Oh, well, thank you very much for having me. It's very exciting on this lovely,
Great.
lovely sunny morning.
Yeah, it's very sunny where I am as well. It's great to have you here. You are a Disruptive Franchise Awards pedigree, really, aren't you? I mean, I was looking back at your record. So you had awards in the first year, which was great. Last year, you were a winner for Inventive Franchise, I believe, and
Yeah.
finalist in two other categories, so social impact and lifestyle franchise as well, which is incredible. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the business.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you. Hi everybody. I am Anna Neville. I am the founder and franchisor of Kidslingo. I actually started the business around 15 years ago, and then franchised around 12 years ago. It started off as just a little initiative locally for me to sort of fit in around, very young children. And then sort of grew pretty rapidly and then launched as a franchise. And then, as they say, the rest is history. We've been going as a franchise now for 12 years. As you said, we teach French and Spanish to young children. So that's the 0 to 11 age range. And our approach is all about fun. So it's lots of songs and games and stories and drama, just making it really engaging, very interactive. And just setting the children off on a path so they feel languages are fun and exciting and a really natural thing to learn. We work across the board in all sorts of different ways. So we work with schools, we work with nurseries, we work in community venue classes, we can run private classes, and some of our franchisees run online classes as well. So it's that whole sort of spectrum. However, people want their young children to learn languages, we can provide a solution.
Amazing. Do you know what I found quite interesting actually is that at school I did French, so my French is slightly better than anything else. But now in high schools, I was quite surprised. My daughter's off to high school in September, and they said, "Oh, well, one year we teach everybody French, and the next intake we do Spanish, and that stays with them through the school." So you've got kind of half the school that speak Spanish and half the school that speak French at language level, but they have to opt to do a club to learn both. I was really surprised at that.
Well, I guess that's great. I suppose if they're sort of having to learn one of those as their more structured language, it's great then to give them that opportunity to experience the other one as well. I mean, some schools are still offering, a range of languages, to every single year group, but unfortunately, for various different reasons, many schools are having to do that and sort of stagger it in terms of 1 year on, 1 year off for a specific language and offer the alternative year in the middle one. But at least they're given the opportunity there to experience different languages, whether it's in a structured classroom context or whether it's in a bit more of a relaxed context of a club.
Yeah, absolutely. We've said to her, just go and do all the languages you can, basically.
Just absorb it all. And, whatever language you learn, it helps you with any other language anyway, because you're learning about structure, you're learning about grammar, and there are so many similarities, especially if you're talking French and Spanish. There are just so many similarities between the two languages that, either whichever one you learn, it helps with the other one, whether you learn it, as a child or whether you learn it later in life.
Yeah, absolutely. What drove you, obviously, to start the business around small children? What drove you to start teaching languages as your business, Anna?
Probably my own small children, actually. So I had a completely different career initially. So I had a languages degree, but then I went down a completely different career path and worked in London advertising agencies and had a whole sort of marketing career and advertising career before my little ones came along. And then at the point at which I had, when I first started doing some classes, I had a 1 year old and a 4 year old. So, pretty hands-full, as we know that period of time can be. And I just needed something that was more flexible. My husband had a very similar marketing career, and it would have just been impossible for both of us to be doing that sort of career simultaneously with young family. So I just started sort of looking at options and just thinking about some different routes. And I'd always loved languages. I'd always had an idea about going into teaching, but had never sort of pursued that directly out of university, obviously. So I just started doing some small local French classes just to fill my time, to do something that I enjoyed. And it was amazing how quickly it sort of took off, started to grow the team, investigated different options for growth, came across franchising, which I think, 12 years ago was a slightly harder area to get into, or certainly to find out information about and to have those sort of support groups and everything that we have now. So yeah, so started doing it a bit and then franchise after a couple of years, and then just had a slow growth to begin with, really, because I was still doing quite a lot of teaching myself at that point. So it was a case of managing the franchise alongside the teaching, which I know a lot of people do when they start off a franchise. And then after a few years of doing that, quite a hard decision to make, I guess, in terms of, do I continue the teaching and run that alongside the franchise, or do I 100%, give it all to the business? And obviously, I plumped for giving 100% to the business, and I think the results have shown for themselves in terms of that extra focus and dedication to the business side has seen the growth from the franchise side.
It's really hard, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I hit that point as a management franchisee, let alone a franchisor, of I love teaching, I love delivering the end service, I love being around the people. That's what gives you the motivation. But actually, I think it's so common to then hit that point of like, well, actually, if this is a business and I'm going to grow it, I can't have my eggs in both baskets in terms of time, especially when you've got kids and you've got the family life to kind of revolve it all around.
Yeah,
You,
it's all about getting the balance, isn't it? And I chat to quite a lot of franchisors. As I said, my door is always open. I'm always happy to talk to people who are looking at franchising, starting franchising, however wherever they are on their journey. And it is nearly always the most common question is it's like, oh, what do I do about the teaching? What do I do about my own territory? And all I ever say is I just tell my own tale. And I said, you just have to look at the growth curve of what happened. And there is always that crunch point, that dilemma of, okay, my income's going to drop for a bit because if I'm not running classes or whatever it is, then it's going to drop. But it's about building that platform then for growth as you move forwards. Otherwise, you're constantly at that crunch point of, I can't grow the business because I'm too busy. I'm too busy, so I can't grow the business. It's just, it's a catch-22.
I think you're absolutely right there. It is that crunch point, isn't it? Of that kind of like it's I guess kind of the way that I would put it is like, what are you willing to sacrifice for future you and future business? And I think also when you franchise it, with the franchisor hat on, it's not just you, it's everybody else. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
actually that isn't a selfish decision like I want to make more money. It's I want to continue to have the impact with my business and help those franchisees businesses to really flourish in a bigger network, isn't it? And it's quite a decision.
Yeah, it is absolutely, and you're right. You owe it as a franchisor. You owe it to your franchisees to give it your all, and to make it the best it can be. And it's very challenging to do that on if you're occupied with doing the teaching yourself and that side of things. But the benefits do come. But as you say, it's the long-term strategy and it's the longer term plan.
Yeah, definitely. I want to come back to something that you just said there because I genuinely think you are one of the friendliest people in the whole franchising industry. I absolutely love it. And not just from my own experience of like being at events with you and chatting to you, and you are absolutely lovely. But I have so many people come to me, whether they work with me or whether I've met them, they're like, oh, there's this really lovely lady, Anna Neville, and she like spent the day with me. She just gave me all this advice, and you are genuinely so giving with your time and your advice.
Oh, well, that's lovely. That's really lovely to hear. But it's important. We're all part of the same. I view myself as part of the kids activities industry and obviously the sort of wider franchise. But I think in terms of my expertise, it certainly lies in the children's activities market. And it's a massive market now. You know, when I first started, there were so few people you could turn to. There were a couple, and they're still there. They're still around, and they were lovely. But the just, you know, there weren't those structures in place. But I think you know, you owe it to the industry, don't you, to give back. And we all want it to be a successful industry. We all want all those amazing activities out there that are going to help our children grow and thrive and discover new talents, new opportunities, whether that's music, dance, drama, languages, art, you know, whatever it is. There are so many opportunities out there for children. And you know, if by a chat, a conversation, an email, I can help somebody from wasting time, wasting money, making mistakes along the way, and actually just give them a bit of support and a bit of guidance, then you know, always more than happy to do that.
Yeah, I think it's so important. And I think it's one of the things that, so I kind of sit alongside, so franchise industry, children's activity like yourself, and online business world. And it's something that really sets not just franchise, but particularly children's activity franchise apart. Because from the outside looking in, it should be so competitive. There are so many other language franchises and children's, and it should be so dog eat dog because everyone's fighting for the same people. Yet actually as an industry it's completely the opposite. I love going to things like ICAP and Club because I come away feeling so nourished from like being around these amazing inspiring people. And I think that actually it's one of the key kind of innovations within the industry actually isn't the tech, it's the people's attitudes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? There are just all these opportunities out there, as you say, ICAT, CAA, EWIF, all of these places. And I think you, as a newcomer into the industry, you want people to feel welcomed, because if they feel welcomed, then they will be adding something to that community. They will be adding something to, you know, all of our children's lives. And I think, yeah, that's even if it's just a big smile and a hello, lovely to meet you sort of thing. I just think that's just really important. It cost nothing, does it? It literally costs nothing.
It doesn't, but I do genuinely think like going to business events, it's becoming more friendly and it's in the events that you pick. But when you go into a franchise event, like I remember being, I mean, I'd been a franchisee for a long time before I stepped into any of those events. And now as MD, it feels a little bit different as well. But those first few times are so nerve-wracking of like, I don't know anyone and what they're going to be like. And I remember one of the first events I went to was EWIF a couple of years ago. You would have definitely been there, and Marie was there, and I was there, and I kind of had this like protection blanket in being there with Jenny Dunman, who's our CEO, and she just knew everybody. But everyone was so friendly, so welcoming, and that then gave me the confidence to go to more events. And I think from a franchisee, I don't know if you see it in your franchise, but we see it in ours that we're kind of constantly saying to franchisees, step out of that comfort zone, go and experience these events because actually they're wonderful and they help you grow. And that network is so important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember really, really early days. I don't know whether you've ever met a lovely lady, Kathy Doolan, who used to run Rhythm Time before it was sold. She sort of sold the business and then retired. And Sarah Cressel, I met really early on, and Marie, I met really early on. And they may not even remember, but I just remember a few little snippets they said to me, and it just really inspired me. And I was just like, you know, this is the world I want to be part of. And I think, as you know, as we've said, that the industry has evolved quite significantly since then as well. And there are just so many people, so many new businesses out there, but that support structure in place, you know, whether it's through individuals, business support like yourself, or whether it's through the bigger events. It's just amazing, you know, it's a great industry to be part of, and I'm really proud to be part of it.
Yeah, I completely feel that. It's pride, absolutely is the right word. It is all about that pride of like being part of something bigger than yourself. And I think when you grow a franchise as well, that feeling of, I don't know about you, but like that feeling of responsibility of like, okay, I want to bring everyone with me. I don't want to just be the one that experiences this. I want to bring everybody with me. And I think that's so different again from other the way that other business structures work. And I know like from a disruptive franchise awards point of view, like it was really important to me coming in this year as the new owner to make sure that there were enough opportunities for franchisees to get involved as well. So we opened up quite a lot of categories to both franchisor and franchisee, and we had some more franchisee categories. So it's I think that pride and that feeling of just the the warmth, I think is
Mm.
the right word. I think everyone should experience that in franchising for sure because it's hard, isn't it? Like running a business, like going back to those very early days when you started, like, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you're so true. And you're sometimes afraid to reach out because you're like, I should know that. I should know that. Or I can't possibly ask that question because they're going to think I'm, really inexperienced. But you know what? You just have to, don't you? And people never ever judge you for it. I've never, no one's ever asked me a question. I go, oh, for goodness sake, how do they not know that? It's just it wouldn't cross your mind. You're like, yeah, oh yeah, I remember, oh yeah. Well, let me tell you about what I did. And I think, you can't give people the answers, but you can just speak about your own experience and what you did, what you didn't do, because every business is different, every person's different, everyone's strategy is different. So it's not a case of you can tell people what to do, but you can give them guidance and they can maybe learn from the mistakes. And I'm sure I made many of those along the way. You can learn from others' mistakes, learn from others' experience, and hopefully just inspire people that yeah, it's really hard work, don't get me wrong, it's really really hard work, but it can be done and you can do this and you can succeed.
Absolutely. What advice would you give, Anna, to somebody who has built a successful business in however they judge success to be, that's thinking about franchising?
Oh, that's just such a big question.
Huge, isn't it?
I think I will and I have done this with people. I would always just give a really honest, no holds barred picture of what it's like to be a franchisor. And like, are you willing to take this on? Because it's a big step and it's an amazing step, but it's not one that you should take lightly, and it's not one you should take without weighing up the pros and the cons, because there are both, and there still are both, even as established franchisee. There's still, there's the pros and the cons to anything. So I think, yeah, you've got to think really, really carefully about it. You've got to talk to a lot of people who are in that position, who are maybe, a small way down the path, further down the path, and then, maybe a much more established business. And just on a personal level, as a business owner, is this the path that you want to go? Because it isn't the only way to expand a business. It really isn't. And I've had conversations with people where I've gone, well, what about if you did this? Or what about if you did that? And they're like, oh yeah, hadn't necessarily considered that a growth route, as an expansion option. So I think, yeah, it's really fully understanding what the role of a franchisor is, and could be as well. It's obviously all the normal things you do with business, looking at the marketplace, understanding the dynamics of the market, understanding the customer base, understanding the demand, all of those sorts of things. But I do think it first comes down to, are you willing to take this on? This is what it can be. This is what you need to do. This is the role you need to take on. And also then, as it grows, how does that then impact you? How much capacity have you got? How would you look to expand the support team? All of those sorts of things.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I see that a lot in my membership actually. So I have a membership for early stage franchisors, but also people who are thinking or beginning to franchise. And so when somebody comes to me and says, I'm thinking about franchising, I'm like, okay, come into the membership for a few months and just see if it's right for you. Because then they're exposed to all of the things that are going on in those early stage franchises with other people in real time, with real problems. And there are a number of them that come back to me and go, yeah, that's not for me.
Yeah.
I think that's great actually because now you know rather than like wondering. I had a business on the side of Daisy First Aid, parents' mental health business, and I got it all ready to franchise. Knew franchising, knew what was involved, literally ops manual ready to go, like recruited in theory the first two franchisees and actually went, you know what? This isn't a franchise. This is a course. And so it's really important, I think, to just take that breath before you fully commit into something like this. It's a big deal. And I
Yeah.
think, again, to take you back to those like early stages, like teaching your classes and trying to grow the franchise. I mean, that must have been hectic with small kids as well, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I remember getting some very early franchise advice, and they just said, give yourself 2 years. And I just thought that was the best thing possible. It's like, don't go headlong into anything, give yourself 2 years, document everything, literally the smallest little thing that you do, and maybe just comes really naturally to you, and you don't even consider. Because actually, if you are creating a system, if you are creating the business in a box ultimately, then people are replicating what you are doing. So even if you think it's maybe slightly irrelevant or just common sense, whatever, just document it down. And for me, that was probably give it 2 years, to get all of that together, document everything was probably the best advice that I ever had. Because by the time I came to that point, I hadn't got everything in place, obviously, because you don't. But there was a lot that was done up to then. And again, bear in mind, I'm talking in a world where we didn't have all the lovely, businesses like yourself, like lots of other ones out there, the organizations, they just weren't there. So there wasn't that set pathway. There wasn't that same support network. As I said, there were lovely people I spoke to, but it just wasn't the same structure it is now. But yeah, that just taking your time, not rushing, and really thinking it through. Because I'm sure over those 2 years, I had a, oh my God, it's the most amazing thing ever. Oh my God, I'm not going to do it. Oh, it was probably just like up and down, up and down, up and down over that period of time. And as you say, I was busy teaching at the same time. But I think it's probably the teaching bit that motivates you, because I was out there seeing the impact it was having on small children. And the fact that I knew if I went through a franchising model, I could expand that to so many more children, and there wasn't really another business, mechanism, mechanic that would allow me to do that. So I think that the fact that I was really busy teaching was a huge motivation for the franchise, because if I myself was teaching, I don't know, 100 children a week, I can't even remember, I don't remember the number, but let's say 100. I knew I knew that if I could do that, if you multiply that by however many in all multiple different places, that you're able to reach so many more children. So I think that was, again, it was 12 years ago, to be honest. So I can't remember the absolute ins and outs of it, but I know that the more I loved teaching, the more I wanted to franchise, because I just wanted to expand that opportunity to more children.
Yeah, I completely get that. It's funny, actually. A lot of people think that the motivation is money or time. Like, people have this notion that if I franchise, I'm going to get all this time back. That actually, if you're a franchisor, you're not getting any time back, I'm afraid. You can buy time in different ways, sure, but you're not going to get it back,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's always something to build. But actually, the biggest reason that franchises like yourself succeed is impact, because they want
yeah,
more impact, genuinely
yeah.
want that impact on society. Hence, you've been finalists and you've won so many awards over the years, not just at Disruptive, but because of that impact that you have on the wider piece. And I won't ask you how many children over the years that Kidslingo has been responsible for teaching, but I'm pretty sure it's a lot. And I think something like language is, you're not really just teaching the kids, are you? Like, you're there for the kids, sure, but the adults are picking stuff up because they're in the room too. And
Yeah.
I think, like, we just come back from Spain. We had a family holiday in Spain, and it's the second year in a row we've gone to Spain. And I came back and I said to the kids, if we're going to do this every year, we need to learn Spanish properly, because ordering lunch is hard. You can't understand. You can understand what to order. You can say, we always learn the pleases and the thank yous and the courtesy points, but when they ask you whether you want mustard on your hot dog and you don't know what you've been,
Yeah, you
have
just nod and you just don't know what you're going to get.
yeah.
Keep your fingers crossed and see what happens. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, because obviously a lot of our work is in schools and nurseries. So, the nursery staff, we hear them saying, oh, it's so lovely to be picking things up. And actually, I was on holiday and I used this. And yeah, I think it's one of those skills, when in older life, so many people look back and just go, I wish I'd learnt a language, don't they? It's one of those sort of key things that whether it's during a career, whether it's in retirement, people just go, oh, I wish I'd learnt a language. And it is so much harder to learn when you're older. And I just think actually we've got that opportunity to give that gift to children at such a young age. And I think even if, they start off when they're in nursery, they maybe then do a bit in school, it's still there. You have embedded that skill, you've embedded that beginner level knowledge that just forms that foundation that whenever they circle back and pick it up, whether it's in primary, secondary, adult life, it will be there, and it will have made a difference just sowing that seed at the younger age, because it's so much easier to learn for children. They literally pick it up like that. And I know we always see in it, it's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? Oh, they're like sponges, but the brain is spongy and it literally picks things up so much quicker. And especially the really, really young ages before all those neural pathways are fully formed. It's the ideal time to start language learning.
It's that thing, isn't it, that actually, as well as kind of having the capacity for it from a neurological point of view, they don't have the fear. of
Yeah.
for me, like I did my best. I'm sure that it wasn't right. I definitely said the wrong words. And I got over it very quickly. But we have a fear as we get older that we don't have as kids. So like that fear of failure or getting it wrong or being laughed at, like it's not there when they're little. So actually that's the perfect time to be trying new things and learning on repetition. We see it in first aid as well. Like when we go in and we teach the kids in a school, the questions that they ask and the stories that they tell you are just like you come out there like we could do a whole like podcast just on like things that we hear in school classes, but
Absolutely.
it's the best for them because they just absorb it all and then they go home and they show their parents and we go back in a year later and then, I remember this and like when we teach adults they're like, oh, I don't want to practice, I might get it wrong.
Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, as you get older, the fear factor kicks in, the self, and especially with the language, the self-consciousness kicks in. It's just like, oh, I'm saying something, having to put on this funny accent and I'm saying different words. They just start to get really, really self-conscious. But the little ones, as you say, throw themselves in wholeheartedly, absolutely love it and absorb it unbelievably quickly. And I think that's a lot of the feedback we get from parents is the speed at which they're absorbing it. And they're coming home, they're singing the songs, they're pointing to things around the house, they're walking up the stairs, counting, all of these sorts of things, which just because they just absorb it without really thinking about it. As an adult and as an older child, there's that sort of analytical part of you that really comes into it. They just enjoy it. They enjoy it for what it is. They just absorb it, and they've got a much greater capacity, I think, for just throwing themselves into it wholeheartedly and not thinking about the consequences, just going for it.
Yeah, I love that. I'm sure over those years that you've been since you started, things have changed and evolved. So, like, what have been like the bigger uh, franchising itself aside, like in terms of how you teach the languages, like what evolutions have kind of helped you to get to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously tech innovations which do come in. But again, we don't always have access to tech. In a nursery, we don't always have access to tech. In a community centre, you don't always have access to tech. So nothing that we do is wholly reliant on it. But I think with COVID and our sort of move online, that opened up a completely new revenue stream for us and a completely new way of learning. And whilst obviously we have nowhere near the same volume of online classes as we did, because at one point in time it was the only option, but actually that is still there as a revenue stream. So, all the resources, all of the everything that we had to very quickly move across to an online platform is still there and is still, thriving, which is great. In terms of actual teaching the children, I'm not sure huge amounts has changed because actually, when you're teaching young children, we start from real little babies, go up to the end of primary school, so it's the 0 to 11 age range. I don't think huge amounts has changed in terms of how you engage children. It's about making it fun, it's about making it age appropriate, it's about introducing things in the right way. So I don't think on the teaching side that much has changed, even though actually you look at the world around us, probably in the last 12 years, there is a lot that has changed. There is a lot that's changed, and things change constantly, don't they? You can never sit still, which I guess links back into the award we won last year in terms of inventive franchise. The world never stays still, but actually that doesn't mean that everything has to change just for change's sake. And I think if you've got it right in terms of how to engage children, that doesn't change. Yeah, there are the bits and pieces around the edge, maybe do the tools and this and that, but actually the fundamental structure actually doesn't change too much.
Love that. I really do. You're absolutely right because people, regardless of the tech around them, remain people, and kids will always respond to fun, inclusion, indifference when they're feeling indifferent, but they are, I guess, fundamentally the same regardless of what generation they are. Back in your advertising career, it would have been like, well, okay, we're targeting millennials and we're going to do this, but actually, yeah, you're dead right. I love it. And if you could wave a magic wand and not fail, what is the one thing you would do?
Oh, that's such a big question, isn't it?
You.
Um, I guess from a business point of view, there's sort of expansion outside of the UK, which I have looked into it in many different ways, not necessarily with French and Spanish, potentially with English, because obviously then the world is your oyster, literally. Um, So I think, yeah, if budget wasn't an option, if failure wasn't an option, I had all that structure in place, then I would love to bring Kidslingo. I'd love to bring our methodology to language learning, across the globe. And it's really interesting. So I've just come back from a holiday in Scandinavia, the level of English in those countries, we visited Sweden and Denmark, is just unbelievable. It's not like just really speaking really good English. It is like native level English. It is just, and idioms and phraseology. It's just amazing. So I would actually love to spend some time in those countries looking at how they teach English to young children, because there must be tips that the rest of the world can take from that in terms of learning a foreign language, because it's just so natural for them, in terms of their English speaking, and they switch in between, their native tongue and English, in the blink of an eye. And all levels, everybody, whether they're working in restaurants, whether they're, in all sorts of different walks of life, they're just a huge level of English. So I'd love to just go and spend some time there, and beautiful countries, spend some time there and sort of investigate that and look at bringing Kids and Go to a wider audience. The reality of that is, in terms of the impact on my personal life and the time it would take, that's what would hold me back.
Yeah.
On a sort of personal, non-business level, I guess, and something I would hope to do in the future is I really want to work in the charity sector. I want to give back. So at the point at which, my Kids and Go journey ends, and you always have to think of the exit strategy longer term, which I hope will be a long, long way off yet. But I've gained so much from working with children, and there are so many children with so many difficulties, even just on our doorstep. But if you take the UK as a whole, there are so many children who need support in so many different ways, that I really want to work in the charity sector in some form of education in children's family support. So yeah, that will hopefully be, much further down the line, the next step in my life, that I will be able to, give back.
Well, selfishly, I hope that's a very long way away because I need to know what you're doing at Kids and Go. Don't leave the industry. But yeah, that would be incredible. I can see that passion in you as you're talking about it. Like you literally are lit up, kind of like, yeah, that's what I want to do. So that's amazing. Two amazing things there
Yeah, well,
to plan, strategize, and who knows one day. Like I love that idea of actually going and studying how other countries learn
mm,
English as a language. I think it's really fascinating actually. I'm reading Serena Wiegmann's book at the moment,
really,
and she's talking about like having worked in the the Netherlands team and kind of being Dutch native coming into the English team and then kind of looking at not just the phrasing, 'cause she's very direct, like not just kind of how she handles herself within the team and communicates, but communication is a massive part of the book,
mm,
like within the context of football. And she's talking about like when she came over to join the Lionesses and kind of work with the FA, about how obviously she's thinking in Dutch. And then it's like, how does that then translate out, not just in words, but in meaning and feeling and directness? And all of this happens in like nanoseconds, and they're just like automatic. But her brain is working really hard to make those things happen. And I just find that so
yeah.
fascinating. I really do.
I think you're right, actually picking on that. I think sport's a really good example. If children are saying, "Oh, why should I learn language? What's the benefit?" And then you see those interviews, of those, and kids aspire, don't they, to all of these amazing sports people out there, especially like the footballers who do change clubs on a very regular basis. And you might get a very well-known player who goes to work in Spain, who goes to work in France, goes to work in Italy. And I think that's when it makes it really real for the kids, when they see one of their amazing, heroes being interviewed and they're speaking Spanish. And they just go, oh, okay, and it's like the penny drops. So I think that's really good when you see those real heroes, making that huge effort to learn the language,
Yeah.
and they view it as that part of integrating themselves within that team, within that culture, and respect, and going back to what you said is, we do the same. So whatever country we go to, it's like, okay, please, thank you, hello, goodbye, as a bare minimum. And it's easier in some countries than it is in other ones. But it's just that courtesy and that respect and that understanding of like, okay, I'm in another country, and yes, we know they speak English, but that doesn't mean you have to speak English to them. That means you've got that opportunity to make an effort. And I think if you do make an effort, you just get so much more out of that experience. And that's the thing. I remember as a young child being on French campsites and making French friends with these young children, and yeah, there's a language barrier, but if you've each got a little bit of each other's language, it's amazing how you can actually communicate with a small bit of language and lots of other cues that go with it. But yeah, it's really important to give children that opportunity. And as I say, we always just set people on that pathway. And that's what it's all about.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Anna, anyone listening thinking I really need to speak to Anna or get in touch with Kidslingo, how can they find you? How can they find
Google, socials, just look up Kidslingo and you'll find us. The general email is info@kidslingo.co.uk. As I say, whether you're interested in, launching your own franchise, doing something, whether you're interested in joining Kidslingo franchise, my door's always open for a good old chat.
Amazing. And Anna is such a good person to chat to. She really is. Anna, thank you so much for joining us this week on the podcast. I've loved chatting to you. We could probably chat all day about different languages.
Absolutely.
Like, well, let's talk about this. But I will leave you there. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back with our next episode with a new guest. In the meantime, Anna, take care of yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before we finish up today, I'd love to just thank our podcast sponsors, Book When and Make Your Mark Podcast Agency, without whom this episode wouldn't have been possible. You can find more information on both amazing companies in the show notes. If you've enjoyed listening to today's episode, please also make sure that you hit the subscribe button, and I would absolutely love it if you left a review too. See you next time.